Cumbria has more than 500 church buildings. All of them have a story to tell from their past, but how do we ensure their future? And what does that future look like? The aim of this video is to help you to assess the viability of your church building and decide what action needs to be taken now and in the future to ensure our church buildings are an asset to their community and for mission. To help you do this, we've worked with Cumbria's church communities to develop a support tool called the Sustainability Rosette. For those who've never seen it before, it's a way to help you review the viability of your church buildings. For those who have seen it before, keep watching, as the Rosette has been updated to make it more relevant. The idea of the Rosette is to provide a framework which will enable you to make an honest evaluation of your church, covering a range of important factors, what's needed to make it a viable asset for the community in the long term, and maintain a sustainable building for future generations. However, this tool isn't about scoring highly, nor is it a competition between churches. After we've gone through the Rosette, we'll explain how it can be used to develop a sustainability strategy for each church building. More on that later, but let's get started. The Rosette highlights 5 areas that need to be assessed to determine whether a church is viable. These are resources, buildings, open to all, realising potential, and vision. Each category is then divided into 2 subcategories. These make up the 10 petals of the Sustainability Rosette. So let's look at the first of the 5 primary categories, resources. For churches to be sustainable, they need people with the right skills and time to help out. They also need sufficient finances. These, of course, will change over time, so there needs to be an element of looking ahead and preparing for any foreseeable changes. People are vital for the mission, management and maintenance of our churches. The right amount of skills and time is needed to carry out routine maintenance, raise funds and engage others. So what information do we need to determine whether a church has enough people to call on and that they have the necessary skills to help with running the church? The answers to questions like these may give you an indication. How can church members or the wider community be encouraged to help maintain the church building? If one person is or becomes unable to carry out their role, how can you ensure others have the knowledge to do so? And how might resources and finances be shared with other churches? A more viable church could have a good-sized and growing congregation of mixed ages with a diverse range of knowledge and skills. They communicate well with the wider community. A less viable church might have a small, ageing congregation with no successors for key roles. The other essential resource for viability is finances. A good understanding of income and expenditure is essential for running your building, including budgeting for inevitable repairs, and how to raise funds for future projects. Asking questions along these lines may help you determine the strength of a church's finances. How much does it cost to run the church building each year, including ministry? Have you budgeted for the maintenance costs highlighted in your quinquennial inspection report? And is there a financial plan in place? A more viable church knows what all the running costs of the building are and has a financial plan to meet those costs, including a fundraising strategy. It may also have ideas on how to generate income from other sources. A less viable church may have insufficient funds to meet current and/or future costs and no fundraising strategy. Let's move on to the second of the primary categories now, buildings. We have a duty of care to pass on our church buildings in good order to future generations. This means carrying out regular maintenance and repairs. It's also important to assess a building's energy efficiency. Regular maintenance and timely repairs are essential to prevent problems from becoming bigger and potentially more expensive. Some questions to ask yourself when thinking about the care and maintenance of your church building. Does your church have a maintenance plan in place? Does the church understand the quinquennial report in terms of what needs to be done and why? Are repairs carried out in good time and by qualified professionals? A more viable church is likely to have a maintenance plan that includes regular inspections of the building. It should be proactive, carrying out all maintenance and repairs in good time. It would always use qualified people to do the repair work. A less viable church may have no maintenance plan, only carrying out maintenance and repairs when it becomes urgent. The church is committed to reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2030. Making churches energy efficient will help to achieve this. Of course, finding ways to reduce a church's carbon footprint also makes financial sense, as cutting energy usage can also cut energy bills. These questions will help you think about how energy efficient your church is. Do you know what your energy costs are? Have you conducted or commissioned an energy audit of the church building? Are there any small changes that could be made to save energy? A more viable church is likely to monitor energy usage and will have taken steps to improve energy efficiency, for instance by installing LED bulbs. It may also be encouraging church users to walk or car share. A less viable church is unlikely to have carried out an energy audit. It's also possible there's little understanding of what affects a church's carbon footprint. The next primary category is called Open to All. This category looks at how we welcome visitors to our historic churches, as well as how to ensure their safety and the security of the building and its contents. An open and welcoming building strengthens the role of the church in the community. It encourages visitors and tourists, allowing more opportunities to raise funds. People visit churches for a variety of reasons. By being open and welcoming, you can share your church's story, whatever their reason for crossing the threshold. To assess how welcoming your church is, you should ask yourself questions like these. Is it accessible and welcoming to all? What can be done to make the church building more welcoming? And how is the story of the church and its relationship with the local community being told? A church that welcomes visitors could open 24/7, have welcome signs and comfortable areas, as well as good information boards or pamphlets that tell its story. A less welcoming church may be locked during the day, have no disability access, and out-of-date information boards or pamphlets. Of course, there's little point in welcoming people into the church if you can't guarantee their safety, or indeed protect church property. It inevitably becomes a balancing act between accessibility and security, but evidence suggests a neglected church is often less safe than one that is regularly used. Thinking about questions like these may help to identify potential risks. Does your insurance policy cover your needs? Are there appropriate security measures for the church building and contents? Has a thorough assessment been made of the hazards and risks of the church building and grounds? A more viable church will have appropriate levels of insurance cover. It will have carried out a recent fire risk assessment and tested all the fire safety equipment. It may also encourage community ownership with a pop-in-as-you-pass policy or even a church watch scheme. Things that may need addressing include equipment which doesn't comply with modern fire regulations, or perhaps there are too many keys for the church with no record of who has one. The fourth section is to do with realising a church's potential. It looks at a church's facilities and what they're used for, and whether they can be matched more efficiently with the needs of the wider community. Churches can be used for many different events depending on the size of the church and its facilities. By understanding the ways in which a building can be enjoyed, you can unlock its potential and broaden its purpose. Asking yourself questions like these may help you maximise your church's potential. Who uses your church building? What facilities does the church building have? And could the church building be used as a community resource? A more viable church will know who its visitors are and why they came. It's likely to have facilities that encourage a longer stay, like a kitchen or disabled toilet. And it may be used for other community uses like art exhibitions or as a post office. A less viable church may have few facilities that encourage people to visit. Or it may be some people just don't want their church used for other business. Church buildings are there to serve all. The better they do this, the better they'll be supported by the community. Matching a church's facilities to the needs of the community will go a long way towards creating a sustainable future. You can better understand your community by asking yourself questions like, how can the church engage with the wider community? What activities are currently available to meet the community's needs? How is the church viewed by the local community? A more viable church is likely to have a regular church magazine, either printed or online. It may have representation on local committees and be active in community events. Or perhaps the church building is being offered as a resource for the local community. A less viable church may have little or no contact with the community outside of weddings, christenings and funerals. The final section is about working together with a common vision, something that's essential for a sustainable and viable church. This includes looking for new ways to grow the church in Cumbria and understanding how working with partners can help with this. Cumbria is already an ecumenical county with a strategy for growth. Turning this vision into reality needs people to work towards a common purpose, responding to good leadership and excellent communication. But is this the case in your church? Is the congregation strong and growing? What can the congregation do to reach out to different sections of the community? How can you engage with other churches and ecumenical partners? A more viable church may have the benefit of a growing electoral roll, or an active young church with a social media presence and up-to-date website. A church with a congregation of fewer than 10 or with a much older demographic may be deemed unviable in the future. A clear vision allied with strong leadership and good communication can help to build strong relationships. Joining together with partners and pooling resources can help a vision become a reality. You can determine whether a church has strong partnerships by asking, is there a clear direction and vision that everyone is committed to? How does your church communicate to people involved? And what are the strengths and weaknesses in your team? A church with strong partnerships is likely to have a clarity of purpose, clear, concise and open communication amongst all members, and a diverse representation of ages and backgrounds in the team. A church with weaker partnerships may have a lack of direction and no plans for the future. So that's how the Sustainability Rosette works. Make sure you record the information in the Sustainability Rosette assessment form. Analysing the results will help to give you an idea of your church's current situation and what it could be like in the future. By carefully considering each of the petals in the Sustainability Rosette, you can use it to create an action plan for your church. By then sharing the information with neighbouring churches, you can work together to solve common problems. For centuries, Cumbria's churches have had to evolve to survive. Now is no different. We believe that with your help, we can develop action plans to maximise the sustainability and the potential of our church buildings, so that they can continue to serve their communities for many more years to come. The Caring for Cumbria's Churches project has produced a series of heritage management tools to support those managing church buildings. To take a look, go to ctfc.org.uk and click on the section titled Caring for Cumbria's Churches. There you can view the Sustainability Rosette and click on the petals for further links. You can also download the Sustainability Rosette assessment form. Watch our series of videos on understanding and caring for church buildings and download the self-inspection template to help you conduct regular maintenance checks.